Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by TheLines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast, reunited once again for a Tuesday episode of Player Props here with you guys. We also have another episode up with some best bets on some sides and totals there. So make sure to subscribe to that page. Don't miss each of these episodes coming out each weekday throughout the rest of this season. Another 2-2 on the Player Props. So let's see if we can't pull it together one more time. One of us can sweep. I'm very confident in it, Nate. Let's go ahead and get into your first Player Prop here for Tuesday night.
Wasn't it 2-1? Because I think Lauri Markkanen didn't even actually play.
And that's right. He was your third bet.
My second one. Yeah. But let me open up with an under here. Jimmy Butler, 31.5 PRA. Shop around and find the best price there. But look, I feel pretty damn good about this one because if Golden State is anywhere near close to covering the 18-point spread, this is an auto cash. Like Jimmy Butler is not the guy who's going to light a team up to get you, the blowout that you need. Steph might be that guy. He tends to go off against Charlotte, his hometown team, right? But I mean, Jimmy's like, this ain't really worth my time. And I mean, even after in some relatively close wins in his last three with the Dubs, we've seen kind of the initial new team bump fade off a little bit. In his first three with the Dubs, 34.3 PRA. Last three, it's 28. The last two, which have been almost identical, like 25-point wins against solid teams, he's only at 26.5 PRA. His usage rate has dropped from 26% to 20%. He's not trying as hard on the boards. His rebound chance rate from 56% to 44%. So he's only grabbing like 4.7 of his 10.7 rebound chances. And that's really the stat that the Hornets are most likely to give up just because they can't hit the broadside of a barn. But they do limit free throws and assists pretty well and kind of muck games up. I mean, at least they have over the course of a larger sample size. But recently, after they got that win against the Lakers, they've just been complete doormats. And I mean, back-to-back 50-point losses. So if that trend continues again, and this is a back-to-back, Domantas Sabonis only 24 PRA last night. I'm pretty sure that's a season low. Like Sabonis is routinely set at like 39.5 PRA. Just didn't have the minutes, just didn't need to do much. You look at, up and down when the Hornets get blown out, like teams do not pile it up on them. And for the Dubs, like this is one more home game before they head out on a 5-game East Coast road trip where Jimmy has some revenge spots because he's made some enemies over the years, Philly, New York, etc. So I just don't think this is a spot where he's going to go out there and try very hard. And certainly not if the game's not close.
Yeah, I think it's a good look. I'd be looking at some unders for some Dubs players. They have 14 guys in their rotation, so Steve Kerr's not going to waste time pulling guys, and honestly probably is already looking at giving Jimmy like 30 minutes capped unless they really need him. And if they really need him, then things are going wrong enough that I'd imagine he's under 31.5 PRA against this Hornets team that plays really slowly, plays the exact opposite of the way that this Dubs team is going to want to play against them. It's like let's just get the ball, go hit threes in transition. Steph can go 1-on-3 and pull up from above the break. Like it's that level stuff here. I don't think we're going to see Mark Williams again. I don't think we're going to see LaMelo on a back-to-back. He's been sitting out on the second legs of all these things. Like Charlotte ain't trying to win. They did their job last night getting blown out by 50, and now they can just again, by the way, and now they can just let their backups, I don't know, whatever they are, they're kind of their starters at this point, but it's all bad. It's all bad, and there's no reason to believe that Jimmy needs to play more than 30 minutes, if that. So with you on that one, I'm going to go over to San Antonio and New Orleans and take Big Zion at 24.5 points, who let me the hell down in the last game. I just did this on Sunday, and he couldn't come through, and I'll tell you why. Because he sleepwalked. I'm really struggling with the past tense of sleepwalk, but he just slept through the first half, and it was disgusting. He had he went 4 for 9. He had 8 points, a couple of boards, like just wasn't trying. Third quarter, and his team was down 13. They had 40 points in the first half. Then come into the third quarter, everybody on the Pelly starts to pick it up, but he's still kind of just loafing around. He's got 4 points in the third quarter, and then we come to the fourth quarter, and he decides that it was like 6 straight possessions, he had like 8 points. It was just like, oh wait, the Spurs don't have anybody guarding the rim. Why am I not just attacking? I don't particularly know, but I'm hoping he's going to wake up and do it earlier in this game. San Antonio is already a bad rim defense, which sounds weird, because they had the defensive player of the year and the best shot blocker that we've seen. I don't know what, Dikembe, right? Or in like early Dikembe at least, and probably better than Dikembe, obviously at this point, probably one of the best of all time. It doesn't seem weird to say that. Yet they still gave up with him out there this season, the sixth most points at the rim on the season. Now they might just be the worst rim defense. Like you've got Bismack and, some version at times of like what Keldon Johnson and Jeremy Sohan are in the Harrison Barnes. Like these are the guys defending the rim now without Wemby. And we talked about how the defense above the break and even in the mid range was already bad for the Spurs, and it just got cleaned up by Wembanyama being able to just swat away shots or deter shots once people got into the paint, including the extended paint, and that just ain't the case anymore. For Zion, he's shooting like 3/4 of his shots at the rim, unsurprisingly, so it's nothing to be scared of there. This is the dude, number one guy you want going to the rim against a team with no rim defense. So that's what it's about. And the crazy thing for Zion is it's very scary to take someone to get 25 points in a game when they're maxing out at 28 minutes. And I think we'll just see that for the rest of the season, right? We've only got like not even 30 games left, 25. So there's no reason for things to change now. They're not going to be like, hey, let's start playing Zion 35 minutes so we can make a run at the playoffs. We're a lottery team. So he's at 28 minutes, but Nate, he's at 1.1 points per minute of floor time. That is absurd, man. I can't make that stuff up, right? It's 1 minute of action time equals a point for Zion Williamson. So he should continue to be projected for about 27 to 28 points until he shows us that he's not capable of doing that. And I'll take him in a wonderful, wonderful matchup against San Antonio.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at this as well. And De'Aaron Fox to bounce back on the other side after just a horrible shooting night.
Awful.
On a sleepy Sunday spot, like you said, and now you get the duplex spot where they just get a chance to immediately bounce back in matchups that should suit them. Certainly, this should suit Zion with no rim protection there. So, yeah, fully endorsed. I mean, the total's up here at 242 as well. So books are not expecting those guys to come out sleepy again. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we got all the star power in Dallas Lakers. Y'all forgot about Clay, though. Over 13.5 points, minus 115. It seems like a really low number to me, especially if PJ Washington's out. Yeah. That's going to be key. I mean, right, then he's going to be the number one spot-up guy for Kyrie to dish to, and Lakers are probably going to try to swarm Kyrie, be like, who else can beat us? Like, we don't think you still have it, Clay. But I mean, he's been shooting with volume lately. I mean, 45% from three in his last four at nearly 10 attempts per game. The Lakers have dared teams to shoot, or they just can't get out with the Luka defense now because they're allowing the fourth most corner threes at 38%. They're allowing the fifth most threes overall. Since they've added Luka and, been pretty lucky with the percentage, they played Utah twice, Portland, and Charlotte in there. So, I mean, now you get a Dallas team that loves to launch. You get a guy who's not at all going to be afraid of the spotlight in a spotlight game, right? He's a guy who has the fire under him, as in like a former teammate, even though briefly former teammates. But I mean, we saw him immediately post trade go for 25 and 29 minutes at Boston to be like, yo, we still got a squad. Like Clay is a guy with immense amount of pride who is part of the reason I don't think Dallas is necessarily just going to lay down. I think he'll be out there. He'll be able to stay on the floor defensively. He has a pretty good defensive rating his last two head-to-head with Luka when he was on the Dubs. And Los Angeles guy, right? I mean, his last four regular season trips to Staples, 24 points per game, 44% from three, again, getting 10 up a game. And if PJ's out, yeah, he's gone over in three straight with 26% usage and is like 13 threes on 30 attempts in 3 games. So yeah, again, just getting the 10 up is almost reliable if PJ Washington doesn't go.
Yeah, it's a great bet if PJ doesn't go. If PJ's out, I'm also looking at some Max Christie like PRA. He's going to have to help out with the boards. And yeah, if they are forcing the ball out of Kyrie's hands, then the second outlet, the outlet pass, the first pass away is going to have options and the ability to get points and assists. So yeah, I would consider Max Christie in that sense if PJ's out. But either way, yeah, Clay at 13.5 points. What's the threes? Is it 3.5 or 4.5? Do you know for the
you need to take 4 threes to get a good price. If it's for 3, it's like minus 150 or worse. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of threes, and he'll probably be scoring them off of that. But there, he has shown a propensity to actually take a step inside and play a little bit differently than he has in the past when he's called upon. So I'm fine with the Clay stuff here. Obviously, you need a decent shooting percentage, but he's been hoisting him. So the volume is what you care about for Clay, and I think that's a good look tonight. And I'm going to close out here with the man known as Pusha P, Peyton Pritchard. Over 13.5 points, you might be able to get this at 12.5. It actually kind of went down a little bit, but I think he's good for 15 again, man. I really do. I think if you want to add like 3.5 boards or 3.5, the assists are actually at 4.5, so they're getting a little out of control on the dimes. I don't know if I'd be adding those, but he's going to be out there at some point against this Raptors squad as the main ball handler. I gotta believe it. I gotta believe that the human victory cigar is going to be out there to celebrate at some point against the Raps. We've got an 11-point spread. Boston away from home, so you obviously prefer them to be at home Boston away. But if you prefer them to be at home to just blow them out, but that's the reason it's like 11 points and not 15 or 14.5 points on the spread specifically for this game. But I do think we're looking at a blowout. We got to pull up some stats that show us that when Peyton Pritchard is playing in a game for the Celtics, that they win by at least 11 points, which is about the spread. He's up at about 15.2 points per game. In the games that they win by 15 plus, he's up at 15.2 points per game. So you get my point here. When they win by a lot, this man scores a bunch more points. But we've also got no Drew Holiday, and Al Horford is questionable. And when I see a guy like Al questionable against a team like the Raptors with other games behind this Raptors game for the Celtics that are going to be much more important, I assume that at least one, whichever big man for the Celtics is questionable, I assume that one is not playing, and that the other one, and he'll play in the second leg of the back-to-back or what have you. But either way, at least Drew's out. With just Drew out in this season, we're looking at 13.9 points per game for Pusha P on the season. And like, look, the matchup is what it is. Like you look at the first 3 games they played this season. In the first game, they didn't blow them out. 6 points, right? That game was a lot tougher. I believe went to OT. He had 24 minutes, which is about what he averages on the season. But once again, when he plays without Drew Holiday or in games where they win, he's actually up to 30.8 minutes per game on the season. Right. So that's what we're banking on here is him getting the minutes. The other 2 games, they blew the doors off this team, and Peyton P was out there for the allotted 28, 30 minutes against this squad. Right. And as a result, went over pretty cleanly in both of those games against Toronto, 19 and 20 points in those last 2. Porzingis was missing in one of them. Porzingis and Drew were missing in another one, but the 6 points that he scored, once again, was because it was a close game, and they just kept the starters out there. Plus, they had a lot more Sam Hauser in that matchup, as there was some big lineups for the Raptors in that game if they had to go big without a couple guys available, I believe, like IQ and RJ even. So this is just a really good contextual situation for a guy who's going to be out there for, I believe, at least 28 minutes in this one again, maybe over 30, depending on how close it is. So, the Celtics aren't playing around with their food too much anymore, man. They kind of let the Knicks come back a little bit on Sunday to the tune of like being up by 9, and then we're like, what are we doing? And they came right back to it. So I expect them to be locked in down the stretch here.
Yeah, but situationally, they're not. This is, you see why Drew's resting, right? It's a road back-to-back at Detroit tomorrow. Detroit red hot, awesome. Then home for Cleveland on Friday. So like This is, even if like other big guys are in there, in terms of like Porzingis or the Jays, like they could have a reduced workload. They could get pulled a little bit early, and Pritch, like, he doesn't need it to be a blowout. Like, he is still front runner for 6th man of the year because he's in there no matter what. And Toronto defensively, certainly not as good. Now they don't have Davion Mitchell in that backcourt. So we waited long enough so that we actually got a number here for Pritch instead of just being like, hey, look, wait for that to drop. So I definitely like this now that we see what the number is.
Absolutely. Yep. Let's go with the human victory cigar, baby. Pusha P, as I call him. But that's all the time we have for you in player props. Make sure you are checking out the other episode we have up each day alongside this one. We've got 4 looks at some sides and totals in our best bets episode. So we'll hope to see you there again moving forward this week. Best of luck to you all tonight. Until we see you tomorrow. Happy betting.